Well, a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to TV47 Weekend. Many thanks for choosing TV47 Weekend to inform you this 15th day of May 2021. My name is Musa Salah. We have a lot lined up for you, but first, the top stories making headlines tonight. ODM leader Raila Odinga calls for restraint and respect for the judiciary, even as he promises BBI supporters that the 5-judge bench verdict will be appealed. Forget appealing the ruling on the BBI. Murang'a senator says the BBI is a lost cause that cannot be redeemed in the courts. Also tonight, campaigns come to an end in Juja and Bonchari constituencies in readiness for the by-elections set for Tuesday next week. And the residents of Baringo County on high alert as leaders issue floods alert following heavy rainfall in the area. Welcome to the broadcast. Anne Wairimu is our sign language interpreter. TV47 Weekend begins right now. Political temperatures are rising within the BBI circles regarding the High Court ruling, with a section of its proponents maintaining that the ruling was in a bad taste. This as ODM party leader Raila Odinga expressed confidence that the BBI train will be back on track while calling for calm within its support base. On the other hand, Deputy President William Ruto's allies have remained adamant that a referendum is not feasible at all, with barely 15 months to the next elections. Our reporter Elizabeth Mutuku has the details.
For the second day, the High Court ruling has continued to cause a storm within the political circles pertaining Thursday's High Court ruling, which saw the BBI process pronounced unconstitutional. Reacting to the Shoka ruling, ODM party through its leader Raila Odinga has this evening said, "We may disagree with the court, but we must respect its ruling and its freedom to exercise its judgment as it understands the legal and constitutional matters before it." While taking a swipe at the BBI proponents, Deputy President William Ruto's allies have advised the BBI supporters not to bother appealing the ruling, saying it will be impractical for any court to overturn all the rulings.
I don't foresee an appeal that vacates all the findings of the High Court. It is almost practically impossible. Why? Because the High Court agreed with so many grounds, almost 20 grounds, and therefore it will be almost impractical for a court of appeal to vacate all those grounds.
Further, Ruto's allies have stated it's not feasible for IEBC to hold a referendum within the remaining timelines ahead of 2022 general elections.
Apply the incoming year. I would imagine we wanted those constituencies to apply next year. So because of that technicality, BBI technically now, from where I sit, is like dead. Of course, some people can bulldoze and cause the Court of Appeal to be constituted as soon as possible through coercion and intimidation. On
the same breath, the BBI proponents have exuded confidence with the Court of Appeal, terming the ruling by High Court as activism, which was fueled by the existing differences between the judiciary and the executive.
Don't be tempted to degenerate into name-calling of each other. Don't be tempted to degenerate into calling for retributive action against our judges. If those judges have made a mistake, let's go to the Court of Appeal and challenge their decision. And if the Court of Appeal hears and finds that we have a point, they will reverse that decision. If we don't get what we want at the Court of Appeal, there is an even higher court, the Supreme Court. So that our country remains a country founded on the rule of law, on constitutionalism, and respect for institutions and respect for each other.
Who support BBI and who stand with the president, we are actually disappointed in the Deputy President. Because the BBI is a process that the president has committed himself. to support him 100%. The deputy president is the principal assistant to the president. We expected that at the very least he would have been there with the president trying to find out what happened, what do we need to do to fix.
Sisi tukiwa wanasiasa, sisi tukiwa wa Kenya, we respect the rule of law. Koti imeamua, sisi tunafuata yenye koti imesema. Na tumeambiwa vile vile that they are going to appeal. Sasa wakienda kuappeal, sisi tunaendelea kungoja koti iamue. Whatever the court will decide, we'll abide by that.
Maneno ya madharau katika judiciary na executive. Na ningesema ya kwamba naomba wale ambao walikuwa wanaendeleza hii BBI warudi kotini, kwa sababu wale majaji wameleta maneno ambao pia wameleta mpaka president. Maneno mengine yanaonekana tu ni ya madharau, na ni vizuri kuheshimu president ambaye tuko naye siku ya wakati huu. Nataka kutoa maoni yao, waseme hawataki katiba igeuzwe, wangeruhusu Wakenya zaidi ya milioni 45 watoe uamuzi wao.
Tunaanza rasmi, tutaongozwa kwa maombi na
Elizabeth Motuko, TV47 Nairobi.
Now, still on matters BBI, 2 days after a 5-judge bench at the Milimani Law Courts stalled the BBI train that was on course to a referendum in July, legal experts now say that chances of a BBI referendum being held before next year's polls are next to none. However, proponents of the BBI bill have remained upbeat that a constitutional change through a referendum will take place before August next year, after revealing plans to appeal the Thursday BBI shocker ruling. Our reporter David Mudoka now takes a look at the BBI roadmap and whether a referendum is feasible with barely 15 months to the next general election.
With the clock ticking to next year's general elections that are barely 15 months away, the odds for a BBI referendum being held before then are increasingly on the rise, according to legal experts. Just as a day in politics is such a long time for the BBI bill, an endorsement by the Senate on Tuesday meant it was all systems go for a referendum that was slated for July, only for a 5-judge bench at the Milimani Law Courts 48 hours later to stop the BBI process dead in its tracks, terming it unconstitutional, null and void. Alongside the declaration was a permanent injunction directed to the IEBC not to hold a referendum. In the backdrop of the judgment and not to give up without a fight, BBI proponents on Friday revealed plans to appeal the ruling at the Court of Appeal, while upbeat that a referendum is still in the offing.
We still believe a new Kenya is possible, that the BBI will give birth to that new Kenya. We will fight to the bitter end.
Legally, 2 outcomes could arise from the appeal. The appellate court might either reaffirm the High Court ruling, thus dealing the BBI process another major setback, or overturn the ruling.
Filing an appeal tends to be very tedious. We start from there, because you need several things. Number one, you need what we call a certified copy of the judgment, certified copy of the proceedings. Then you prepare what is called a record of appeal. And remember, these are several cases which have been consolidated. And then once you file it, then you have to constitute a bench. Remember, the appellate bench has to be larger than the one that was in the High Court. The High Court judges were 5. So maybe you need about 7 judges in the Court of Appeal. So all that process definitely ought not to take less than 3 or 4 months from today.
And because the High Court judgment has got so many elements, even if you succeeded 50% in the High Court, that will not be sufficient to salvage BBI.
Should the petitioners be able to convince the Court of Appeal that the BBI process was constitutional and the appellate court turns the BBI reggae volume up, therein lies another legal hurdle. In Thursday's 500-page judgment by Justices Joel Ngugi, Teresia Matheka, Chacha Mwita, Jairus Nga and George Odunga, the IEBC was found incapable of conducting a referendum on grounds that it does not meet the quorum to do so. With just 3 commissioners, the court directed that the vacancies at IEBC's top brass be filled before referendum plans are underway, another process that could drag 4 months.
The High Court bench detonated a nuclear bomb on BBI. So that sometimes you can say that you've been hit with a mortar. this was not a mortar attack on BBI.
As for the former outcome, where the Court of Appeal retains the BBI shocker ruling, the proponents could either reappeal the appellate court's judgment at the Supreme Court or begin another push to amend the constitution from scratch, one that could take years before it culminates into a referendum.
And whatever the Court of Appeal rules, given the importance of this case, it will ultimately find its way in the Supreme Court.
Similarly, should the Court of Appeal overturn the High Court ruling, the respondents might choose to appeal the Court of Appeal's decision, with the possibility of the BBI case being heard by the Supreme Court bench ostensibly high.
If you are to have the case heard and determined, even within the next 4 months, then BBI technically dies.
Even if the BBI were to do to have a referendum in August, we cannot have a general election next year. Zero chance. So that the only way to have an election next year, there must be no BBI.
We are not likely to have any referendum before the elections, which are fixed by the Constitution to take place on the 9th of August 2022.
According to legal experts, with a cloud of uncertainty hovering over the BBI process and no end in sight, some of the proponents of the bill could soon jump ship to prioritize the upcoming elections, thus dealing the death blow to President Uhuru Kenyatta's BBI legacy and ODM leader Raila Odinga's political anchor plan.
So that now if somebody is putting you direct under political pressure, do you respond to that political pressure in terms of seeking power? Or do you still pursue BBI that still must fight a bigger struggle in the courts?
Until Saturday evening, the duo had maintained a loud silence over Thursday's BBI bombshell, perhaps to lick their wounds after the BBI humbling or to stealthily re-strategize. David Mudhoka, TV47.
Indeed, the bumpy road to a referendum. Thank you so much, David Mudhoka, for that report. Now, candidates in the Juja and Bonchari by-elections have concluded their campaigns ahead of the mini polls slated for Tuesday next week. Kiambu County Police Commander Nuno Ali has warned those planning to disrupt the voting exercise shall be dealt with accordingly. In Kisii, security has been beefed up, with local leaders calling on candidates and their supporters to maintain peace during the by-election. Candidates in the Juja and Bonchari by-elections rocked the streets of their respective counties one last time to conclude their campaigns ahead of the polling day on Tuesday. The Bonchari by-election has attracted 13 candidates, with the battle now shaping into a three-horse race between Zebedeo Pore of Jubilee, Pavel Oimeke of ODM, and UDS Teresa Bititu. The candidates engaged in last-minute efforts to woo voters and sell their manifesto to the locals.
Ombi langu ni kwamba fanye election kwa njia ya amani, bila fujo, na vile mtadawili ile ya kufanya rigging.
Kwanza tutafanya siasa ya amani. Yeyote ambaye atakuja na vurugu, hayo ni yake, na tunaomba serikali ifanye sehemu yake.
Usije ukatuletea mgeni ambaye anatoka kule nje mahali anatoka na kuja kututusi hapa. Wiki nakuja, kila mtu aende, tushikane mkono, tuseme Mungu ni mzuri, tumepata kiongozi.
Several police officers have been deployed in various parts of Kisii County, with Nyanza Regional Commissioner Magu Mutindika claiming that they have so far arrested and arraigned 3 people in court for disrupting peace in the county.
They are goons that have been hired from within and outside the county to cause mayhem and chaos during the by-election. We are making a very, very, very close following of what is happening. And so far we have arrested about 3 people in Mbonjari, in some of the areas. They have been taken to court. Let me make it clear that we as law enforcement officers, we will not allow that.
However, Mutindika has rubbished claims by UDA and ODM parties that police officers have been intimidating their candidates and supporters, just hours after Kisii Governor James Ongwae alleged that about 50 police officers raided his home in an attempt to scare him off from supporting ODM's candidate Pavel Oimeke. The political atmosphere was no different in Juja constituency that has similarly attracted 13 candidates. However, Kiambu County Commissioner Wilson Wanyanga has asked Juja residents to keep calm and vote without fear amid reports that some rival candidates were planning to cause chaos during the by-election.
We are aware of plans to disrupt the elections. We are aware of the tricks and devices being used by some of the candidates and their supporters. And I want to warn them that any attempt will meet an equal opposing force.
Ningependa kila mtu ajue kwamba kama amedanganywa kwamba kutakuwa na nafasi ya kuja kufuruga kura siku hiyo, atapambana na polisi. Sisi hatutumii wakora, lakini tunasikia kuna wale wanataka kutumia wakora kuja kufuruga uchaguzi. Serikali iko imara, wapiga kura siku hiyo wajitokeze bila kuogopa.
Meanwhile, UDA members in Muguga ward in Kiambu County queued in 7 polling stations to nominate a candidate out of the 7 nominees who declared their interest following the death of former area MCA Eliud Ngugi, who succumbed to COVID-19 in March.
So we have 7 aspirants who are competing, and they seem to have done their campaign properly because we are seeing very good turnout. We are expecting maybe slightly over 50% turnout of the voters who are in Muguga, registered in Muguga ward.
Watu wengi wanapenda chama hiki, hata wengine baadhi yao hawajajiandikisha, lakini wale wamejiandikisha bado ni wengi, na ninaona hapa UDA inajulikana sasa, iko na misisi hapa chini.
Well, it's time to take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongeze zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Ndio nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cup of coffee. Coffee, movie. Together, coffee with movie. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. on TV 47, where we bring you interesting, enticing people. Well, we've concentrated on musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah. Producers.
So now I manage, because talent management and events management, I think was my passion.
Right about now, we want to go beyond to the counties and to other countries. I'll see you. Let the sun stand still like Joshua time for 3 hours, but this time for only 1 hour. We bring you coffee with movie. Interesting, enticing guests. I'll see you. Tunaweza anza tuna Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, twende Uganda, Magufuli Land, TZ, you never know. It is called...
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back. You're watching TV 47 Weekend. Keep talking to us. 22047 is our SMS line. You can also find us on social media at TV47Kenya on Facebook, as well as at TV47K on Twitter. The hashtag to use is TV47 Weekend. Now, moving on, Baringo County Governor Stanley Kiptis has appealed to locals in flood-prone areas to relocate to higher grounds following heavy downpour. Heavy rains being experienced across the country continue to cause havoc, with the loss of lives and property of unknown value being wrecked. Daniel Masiza with the details.
Severe flooding has affected wide areas across the country since the start of the long rain season in early April. The heavy downpour has worsened the situation, with flooding reported in a good number of regions. Baringo Governor Stanley Kiptis has appealed to residents to move to higher grounds in the wake of fears of loss of life and property in flooded areas of Ngambo, Salabani and Kiserian. Water levels in Lake Baringo and Lake Bogoria are also expected to rise above normal due to the heavy downpour.
Tumeadhariwa na bomu tatu hapa maji, na pia Muruda tuko karibu nao, na River Varkera ndio ilianza kusukuma River Molo. Sasa niyo mtoni ndio lilisababisha sana, na mashamba pia tumeadhariwa tena na maji.
Wananchi wa hapa tafadhali tujilinde. Nauliza mpaka Marikata, mahali flooding saa zingine husumbua watu sana. Watu ya Leboi, watu wa Aljamus community kule Mkutani, Serian, wakae chonjo. Sisi ambao tunaishi nyanda za juu milimani kule Jemorgong, huko yote Kiptagich, mpaka sehemu zile za North Baringo milima, tukae tukijihadhari. Inaweza katika iletie sisi mahaba. So mimi naomba, sababu tumepewa warning na meteorological department, jemeni tukae tukikuwa na njia ya kujizuia.
Meanwhile, Kibra residents are appealing for humanitarian aid to help them recover from the loss of lives and property following heavy downpour on Thursday that left 3 people dead and several others missing.
Wajaribu kushughulikia story na hii kwa sababu watu wenye wanakaa karibu na mto ni wengi sana na hakuna mahali pengine wanaweza enda. Wajaribu kuona venye tunaweza fanya biashara kwa amani mtoni, watuundie. Watoto hapa hivi ni wengi sana, wamama wanapita hapa, kuna watu wengi wanatumia hii biashara. Sasa ukiangalia hadi hapa saa hizi inamaanisha itatuchukua kama miezi kama ingine 2 ndio tujireconstruct ndio tuanze biashara.
Watoto wetu tumepeleka kwa majirani mahali penye wanaweza saidika. Hata kukula imekuwa ngumu kwa sababu maji libeba mpaka unga, hata masufuria, hata manguo hatuna. Sasa hata tujui tutaenda wapi. But chenye naomba serikali iweze kututetea. Na tena tunasema MCA wetu wametuacha tu tunaadhirika, alafu siku ya kura ndio watakuja hapa kututafuta tuwapigie kura.
According to Kenya Red Cross, by mid-May, almost 1,000 families had been displaced in Homa Bay, Baringo and Busia. Flash floods also affected low areas of Turkana, Kisumu and Kakamega counties. Daniel Masiza, TV47.
Well, thank you, Daniel Masiza, for that report. Now, the narrative around early human settlement has been changed after scientists recently found the oldest known human burial of a young child at a cave site near the Kenyan coast. The body was dug from a shallow grave where it had been dropped in a burial garment.
In a cave near the Kenyan coast lies the body of a child, the oldest known human burial site dating back to 78,000 years ago. The small child, about 3 years of age, was carefully placed on the right side in a shallow pit under an overhang at a Panga side cave, providing new insights. According to Emmanuel Andiama, the senior research scientist and head of archaeology at the National Museum of Kenya, this discovery reflects human cultural evolution, including how Middle Stone Age populations interacted with the dead.
That kind of a burial position actually tells us something about how that it was intentionally put there. As it's for the first time that we're beginning now to get a feel of the cognitive and also the emotional we are getting a glimpse of their cognitive and emotional abilities at this point in time. For a very long time, we have only been looking at the technology, their subsistence, the environment, but we are beginning to understand now people having some emotional attachments to the dead, that they can be able to intentionally bury them.
The child, whose gender remains unclear, was placed in the grave in a flexed position with knees drawn towards the chest. The head was placed on a pillow and the upper part of the body carefully wrapped in a burial garment. Scientists nicknamed it Mtoto.
All this actually, as you see it, is all it was all one piece of mass of encompassing in sediment and very blocky thing. So this is after actually the preparation in Spain that was able to separate them. Initially we thought it was just another primate and that is it, or a monkey. But then when we brought it here in the lab, and we have our preparation lab just downstairs from where we are now, is when they actually cleaned and they found the first tooth, and they found it was a molar, and there are those guys there that are trained to look at it. They knew it was definitely human, so we were very excited and get engaged.
The age estimate was reached based on the dental formula, since teeth are the most accurate age indicators when it comes to research.
The age of the child is 2 to 3 years. That's what we approximate based on the dental formula, and also but the specimen, the sediment itself is been dated to 78,000 years, and that actually falls within a time frame of called Homo sapiens, or anatomically modern human beings. So these are people like just you and me.
This discovery has seen scientists conclude that the early Homo sapiens lived in different parts of Kenya, contradicting a long-standing narrative that early humans only settled in the Great Rift Valley, farther west from the coast. Grace Josephine for TV47.
Well, some developments there for the lovers of history. Now, scientists have lauded the move by the government to sound an alarm of a possible third wave in the country in the month of July. However, Zainab Mohammed now reports experts warn that more needs to be done than just early predictions of a possible wave should the country squarely manage another surge in the COVID-19 cases.
After a clear pattern of a surge in COVID-19 cases in the country every 3 months, the Ministry of Health on Wednesday warned of a possible fourth wave come the 4th of July, an announcement that has sparked numerous emotions among experts, with the ongoing crisis in India a clear indication of what might happen should a country be found ill-prepared for a surge in COVID-19 cases. Dr. Misekeli Mbega, a healthcare practitioner and the Deputy Secretary General at KMPDU, says more needs to be done than just early predictions should the country squarely manage another surge in COVID-19 cases. According to Dr. Misekeli, the possibility of another wave scares many health practitioners who are on the front line with very little to be shown a year and a half into the pandemic.
Question that KMPDU keeps on asking for now 1 year going on, that apart from just predicting those waves, what is the government doing about them? 300 million shillings were sent to each county to build ICUs. We all know where that money went to. They have never built those ICUs. They have never hired healthcare workers. They have never even procured the second batch of vaccines to prevent that. And it's very, very frustrating for us healthcare workers. Like some of us received the first vaccine. We were supposed to get our second vaccination. Nobody has told us whether we'll even get a chance to get those second vaccinations. We all know. Also the issues around corruption that have bedeviled this whole COVID pandemic. We just hope that July is far enough to enable us as a country to put things in order that will ensure that the fourth wave, no matter how strong it is, saves us.
He further says the existence of many new variants in the country, including the highly lethal Indian strain, could further escalate the coming wave.
Of course, in epidemiology, we expect that as the virus mutates, it becomes more lethal, because to survive more, maybe adapt to the medication, adapt to the vaccine, so it could be more lethal. But we are optimistic that we'll be able to come out through strongly. Yeah. So as we put the plants in place, the oxygen concentrators in place, we put the ICU beds in place, we have the healthcare workers properly prepared for this, we might be able to get through with it with proper preventive measures.
Meanwhile, the country has today recorded a total of 267 new COVID-19 cases, 57 recoveries, and 25 new deaths. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Well, Zainab Mohammed's story takes us to a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more. Remember, you can follow this live broadcast on www.tv47.co.ke. Stay tuned.
You are watching
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongeze zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Nitajua nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
Oh, hi. It's not what you're thinking. It's a cat.
TV47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back. You're watching TV47 Weekend. Now, the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic still continues as countries struggle to maintain low infection and death rates. The United States is still leading in global infection rates, followed by India, while South Africa has the highest infection rate in Africa. Jessica Nanjendo takes a look at the COVID-19 situation in the three countries.
As the coronavirus pandemic looms, the number of infections now stands at slightly over 150 million cases, with about 3.5 million deaths and at least 140 million recoveries around the world. The United States tops the list, with the Center for Systems Science and Engineering reporting over 30 million cases as of last Friday. Authorities in New York have been lifting COVID-19 restrictions as the city's infection rate drops thanks to the rapid rollout of vaccines. India comes second as they record dropping infection rates, but the death toll still teeters over the 4,000 per day mark. The South Asian country recorded over 300,000 cases in the past 24 hours, with the World Health Organization warning that the second year of the pandemic could be worse.
Still, the numbers are quite huge. Of course, we crossed 4 lakh, but still number now, even 3,20,000 is not a less number. So we don't have to be complacent. We don't have to just sit back and relax. We have to be on our toes. We don't have to let our guard down.
South Africa's infection rate has risen over the past few days as the Republic expresses growing concerns over the two deadly variants, United Kingdom's B117 and India's B1617. While the number of cases are being managed, experts remain optimistic that the second wave may have boosted immunity against imported variants.
In vitro studies, so studies in the lab, have shown that immunity induced by the variant that is very common in South Africa does seem to protect against the variant that's very common in the UK. So it's likely that this immunity that we have from 501YV2 is going to protect us, at least to some extent, against other variants if they come into the country.
Jessica Nanjendo, TV47.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta is one of the few heads of state who attended Djibouti's president inauguration today. President Uhuru, who is the current chairperson of the East African Community, arrived in Djibouti earlier in the day, accompanied by Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo. Other leaders present for the inauguration include Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, South Sudan Vice President Rebecca Nyandeng, Rwanda's Prime Minister Edward Ningirete, who represented Paul Kagame at the function, among others. At the age of 73, Ismail Omar Gule has won a fifth term in office, making him one of the longest-serving presidents in Africa for over 2 decades since 1999. Omar succeeded Hassan Guled, who had served the country since its independence in 1977. President Gule called on African nations to unite and embrace integration to achieve the continent's development aspirations. Now, a 12-story Gaza tower block housing the offices of the US-based Associated Press and Qatar-based broadcaster Al Jazeera collapsed today after being struck by Israeli missiles. Reports say the owner of the building had been warned in advance of an impending Israeli missile strike, and the building had been evacuated. The Israeli military did not immediately provide comment on the incident. Footage from Gaza showed a large cloud of black smoke rising above the city skyline around the time the incident was reported. The building also contained a number of apartments and other offices. Palestinian medics said at least 132 people have been killed in Gaza since Monday, including 32 children and 21 women, and 950 others wounded. 9 people have died in Israel since the fighting started on Monday.